Hey everybody, it's your boy Pee Wee back with another video. So, many years ago, I don't want to say many years ago because that just sounds wrong, but 5 or 6 years ago, there was this trend or phase, whatever you want to call it, of just cultivation manhwas being pumped out like no tomorrow. And if you were a reader then, or if you a recent reader who's gone back to like read a bunch of old manhwas, Um, or you just heard the famous like saying that gets thrown around like courting death, and like that's genuinely what this era was all about. Nowadays, we have like a bunch of system stuff. We have the horny stuff that that we get a lot more now than we did back then. But 5 or 6 years ago, when I first started reading, there was this trend of just cultivation manhwas just being pumped out, and they were essentially just a lot of copy paste of one another. And essentially, this video is just going to be talking about the ones that I feel are the best ones to have come out of that era, that phase, so to speak, because a lot of them were just copy paste of each other, and a lot of them just fell short of what the other ones were, or we had that weird thing where it was like you'd read like 40 to 50 chapters with a good translation, and then after chapter like 50 it would just turn to like a really bad nonsensical translation that was even worse than like the MTO translations these days. And then it would essentially just fizzle out to either it would just stop being translated or altogether just got axed. Now, that was just a weird time to be a reader, simply because you'd start a cultivation comic. You would it would be good, it would be going great, the translation was good, and then once you got to that point where it was like, oh, the translation went from good to bad, you only knew it was like a matter of time before it got canceled. And so I don't want to rant about that too much. It's just, if you were there or you were a reader at that time, then you understand what I'm saying. But these ones are just the best cultivation manhwas from that time, in my opinion. And to start off with the least best best one, I don't understand. Like out of the list, we're going from like what I think is the worst out of these five, but it's still better than basically overall out of all the copy paste. And the first one will be Emperor Ling Tian. Now, essentially, these all start relatively the same. You have a main character who is betrayed in some way, or he's basically getting killed at the start, and he basically reincarnates into the body of someone who's basically just like deemed as trash and worthless. And so, and the whole point of all of these comics, where once the main character reincarnates, they begin to cultivate, become stronger to get their revenge, and just eventually become the strongest, and to defeat all their enemies and to get revenge for anyone that killed them, or achieve whatever goal or desire they had that forced them into the position that they got to. But Emperor Ling Tian follows that same trend. He gets killed, he reincarnates, and basically, he won't he basically he wakes up in this new body. The marriage between this body's like fiance and whatnot gets like broken, and so on and so forth. The typical trend on how these went. uh well, the reason why I think this one is better above all the others is simply because this main character, um a lot of them really didn't like care what anybody had to say. But it was just mainly how the main character like reacts to stuff. This guy, like a lot of them weren't like this, but this one in particular, it was equal rights, equal fights, right? It was regardless of who it was, their gender, race, whoever. He just didn't take shit from anybody, and he just, basically focused on getting stronger to get his revenge. Now, as I said, a lot of these got axed. This one got axed after 345 chapters. Now, there were, reason why this one I think stands out as well is because a lot of them didn't even get this far. Like a lot of them got axed after like 50, 60, 70, 80 chapters. Like seeing one of these that got like 300 chapters, like usually the max capped out at like anywhere between 1 to 250. Um, but yeah, so that'll be that one. The next one I would say was Return of the Immortal Emperor. The reason why I think this one stands out uh, is simply because I felt like the way everything, like the world layout, was done pretty well. This one, instead of being killed or betrayed by anybody, they took a different approach. And essentially, our main character, he was teleported into this world because he fell into like some like time travel space portal thing, and he spent 3,000 in this new world. He became the emperor, and eventually, the reason why he basically loses his life in this one is because he's wants to go back home. And basically, the story of this one revolves around him becoming strong enough to go back home. And I felt like that premise itself was worthy of it standing out from all the other ones at the time. The next one would be Shenwu Tianzun. Now, this one is still ongoing, um, which is from that time period is essentially really rare. It's up to 913 chapters. So if you're curious as to what the comics were like back then compared to now, this is a good example of it because it is still ongoing, it is still being updated, and it is essentially if you read this one, you get the gist of what the era was like back then. Now, in this one, our main character, he's a supreme body cultivator. He basically can't cultivate normally how other people cultivate with like ki and stuff like that. He gets betrayed. He wakes up in this new body. Unfortunately, this body is still like he can't cultivate and get ki like normal people, but using the cultivation technique from his previous life, it's essentially basically the body he has now is perfect, is like the body he wishes he had in his previous life, and his goal is to focus on getting revenge on anybody who um, harmed like the body he possesses. He wishes to find his family that he was had to be without for the last 3,000 years in that world, 3 years on Earth, and it's just a story that I think is done relatively well, and the premise of it was better, and it made it just stand out amongst the saturated market of these cultivation manhwas. Now another one, um, I think the reason would be Immortal Emperor Luo Wuji has returned. I believe, in my opinion, this one stood out a lot more because it was set in like the modern day. So like our Emperor Wuji, he gets betrayed by his disciple. Um, like that's pretty much how his life comes to an end in his previous life. She basically kills him, and then he fell for it because he took her in, whatnot, and so forth. So he dies, and he gets reincarnated into. God, I forgot how long this chapter was. Essentially, he gets reincarnated into the modern day, with no cultivation. It's like a modern type of comic. So it's like there on this one Earth, like there isn't as much um ki in or like spirit or whatever in this world. The typical, he has a girlfriend, however, she breaks up with him, finds someone else, yada yada yada. But this one I feel like is better because he focuses on not only himself, but there's a lot of instances in this comic where he helps other people. He builds. It's set in the modern day with like cultivation as like a subplot almost, and out of the hundreds that of the copy paste comics, I felt like the modern day setting, um, our main character actually having a purpose with his reincarnation. Like yes, revenge was his purpose. However, it's not like he like a lot of these don't have an ending, and this one we actually got an ending for. So that in itself was enough to make me recommend it. And then the last one, which I would have to say is probably my favorite of the ones on this list, would be Above All Gods. Now our main character, he basically was unrivaled in his previous life, and these people hunted him down because they essentially were like, we can't stand you, because he was like evil, in like a lot of people's eyes, and so they basically kill him to try and, um, just rid the world of him. Now, this one is interesting, and the reason why I liked it the most was because he actually interacts from people from his previous life. So as you can see here, they're attacking him. This is like one of his, like, I don't want to say disciples, but like his friend or someone who was like a subordinate of him. And after he dies, he reincarnates and whatnot. This person is still, like he finds this person and he finds other people from his old past life, um, to basically help him get stronger, help him work towards his revenge. And this one is more of like a yap session almost, rather than like there. It's not as many fights as all the other ones are. This one does like a lot more talking, a lot more. There's a lot more reading. So rather than like watching a fight happen, just a lot more conversations and whatnot going on. Uh, but I do feel like out of all of the ones from that era, that phase of the manhua, time period, I feel like this is definitely one of the best ones to come out when it did. But yeah, so that's 5 recommendations of cultivation manhwas for you guys. If you guys want a list of other types of genres or whatnot, leave that in the below. I'll make you guys a list of recommendations for that. If there's any comics you guys want me to review or just talk about in general, let me know below. I'm more than happy to do so. But yeah, that'll be it for this video, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.